we just talk about 3-input Karnaugh map, right? 3-variable Karnaugh map, 3-input. This is how the 4-input of the 4-variable Karnaugh map looks like. Okay, later on we'll just call it K-map, right? If we use K-map, right, in the homework or exam, that just means Karnaugh map, right? Very similar to the 3-input one, right? We also have this kind of sequence, right? For the rows, you have 4 inputs. Okay, but in this case, we have 2 variables, right, per dimension. Okay, AB for columns and CD for rows. Right, so in this case, we can easily, right? So for 4 input, we can also easily just write down the corresponding min terms. Okay, and we can combine them, right? The 4-input one works just right, like the 3-input one. Right? We can just keep combining this, and in the end, right? So if you circle this whole thing, we knock out 2 literals, right? At the beginning, we have 4 literals. So after this combining, right, we have 2. Okay, so this is a simple example. And in the 4-input one, make sure that you guys pay attention to the corners. Right? So what's your guess? Are these adjacent or not? Yes, right. Just think about the intuition that we just talk about, right? You guys can do the same, right? You guys can derive your own 4-input Karnaugh map, just like what I did. Okay, you'll find out, right? Basically, the top row and the bottom row, they are also adjacent. Right? The leftmost column is adjacent to the rightmost column. Of course, the corners are also adjacent. So that means we can actually circle these 4 things all together, right? Like this. Okay, so this might be something that you may easily miss, right, later on in homework and exams. So my general advice is, so when you do Karnaugh map, first check the corners, then check the boundary. Top row, right, bottom row, right, leftmost, rightmost, check the boundary before you circle the things in the middle. Okay. All right, so what is the final term? Again, we knock out 2, right? We knock out 2 literals. So how do we read this off? Find the common things, right? The common, which ones are common? It's common in B, right? Right? And it's common in what? In D, right? So again, we just combine things, right? The reason I expand this combining, right? So steps is just want to show you that when we actually circle 4 things, when we apply Boolean algebra, right? When we apply these Boolean theorems, we actually go through these steps. Okay? But for Karnaugh map, you guys don't need to worry about the steps, right? You can directly derive the final term. Okay, one more. How many circles do we have, guys? First, corners, right? So what else? Top row, right? And then we can circle rest, right? First, corners. And look at the boundary, right? Top row. And we cover this too. Okay, so why do we do this? Let me go back. Again, corners. Top row, right? Everything in the top row already covered. We are only missing this guy, right? But if you look at, you pay attention to the green circle. Why do we also circle the top row? Just so we can knock out more literals. Make sense? Okay. So again, this is where we apply an idempotency. It's fine for one cell, a single cell, right, to be covered more than once. That's totally fine, as long as it's useful. Okay, in this case, it's indeed useful. Right. Okay. I'm not going to read this, right? So you guys can do this exercise offline, right? So try to be good at this, right? So you can just try to read off the literals. Okay, so we have been mainly focusing on POS, right? Product sums. So now let's quickly look at POS, right? We have been mainly look at SOP, sum product, and then let's look at POS. So this is where we look at the max terms, right? We look at offset, right? So this is where we look at the zeros, the zero cells. The procedure is very much the same. So we circle the zero cells in this time. And we also look at the wraparound sets, right? Things need to be power of 2. That's it. The main difference is after we circle the zero cells, we need to translate things into max terms, with the sum terms, not the product terms anymore. Okay. And in the end, we make a product out of them. Right? We use the so-called pi notation. Okay, so this is the POS example. How many circles do we need? 2, right? Okay, first corners and right, these 2. That's it. So there are no other prime implicants that we can use, right, to make this blue circle bigger. What is this? Let's read it off since this is a max term, right? What is this? What's in common? How many literals do we have in the sum term? We are combining 2, right? So that means we are knocking out one literal. Initially, we have 4 variables, right? So we are supposed to have 3, right? 3 literals. Okay, so usually, things are falling in the same column, same row, things are pretty easy, right? So we just look at the corresponding label in this column, right? So we already have A plus B naught, right? This is max term. If you have a 0, we have positive literal. If you have 1, we have a negative literal. What else? What else is common? C, right? C is 1. C is common here, right? C is 1. Is that right? No, right? We need to invert it. 1 in max term means C naught. Okay, so the corners is just B plus D, right? You guys reconvince yourself. This is POS. Any questions about POS? So why can we, here's a question, why can we, someone is asking, why can we combine the left 2 zeros, in the last row? Okay, yeah, good question, Sunny. So the question is, now we have, right, so 2 circles, right? So what about this 2? Okay, we don't have to, right? Since we want to minimize things. So the goal here is that we want to cover all the 0 cells. We have already, right, covered all of them. We're already done. Okay. Of course, if you circle one more thing and add one more term, the final function will not be wrong. It's still a correct function, but it's just not as simple, it's not simplified as the one that we just did. Does it make sense? Okay. Right, so there's one more question, right? Why is this C naught, right? That's a question. Lauren, you're asking, right? Okay, again, this is a max term, right? We are talking about max term here. So C is, the common thing is C over here, right? C is 1, right? In both rows. But when we have a 1 for max term, we need to translate it into a negative literal. If a 0, we translate it into a positive literal. Okay. All right, so this is POS. Right, this is the final term. This is the final expression. Okay, so I also want to spend just a couple minutes, right, to quickly talk about don't cares, since this is something that you guys will need to know in the lab, right, for the first lab. So basically, don't care is actually something that's not specified in the function. So this may not be too clear, right, from this specific slide, right? But I hope that will make it even more clear, right? In the later lecture, right? Also during the lab sections, okay? So what exactly do we mean by don't care? So here's example, right? So let's say we want to build a function that detect all the even decimal digits, okay? The even decimal digits, except 6, right? But actually this part is not that important for now. But first, just think about, you want to detect, make a detector like this, right? That detect all the decimal digits, okay? Which is from 0 through 9, right? 0 to 9. This is our input set. This is basically our input domain, our input range. Oh, let me put it that way. This is input range from 0 to 9. So how many bits, how many binary bits do we need to represent 0 through 9, 0 to 9? 3 or 4? 4 bits, right? We need 4 bits. Because we already talked about this, right? In the first lecture, I actually showed you guys this, right? This heater, right? So there we have 3 bits. We can represent from 0 through 7, right? 8 different combinations, right? 8 different kind of possibilities. So with 8 and 9, we actually need 1 more bit. But this means that actually there is something that's not specified really, right? So for the numbers like 10, 11, right, all the way to 15, right? Because with 4 bits, we can represent decimal numbers, right, from 0 to 15, right? Okay, with 4 bits. But in this specific problem, we only care about the input from 0 to 9. Okay, in the specific input statement, problem statement for the input set. And these ones, okay, for all these input combinations, if you have a 0, or you have 10 or 11 or 15, we don't care about the output. Okay, we can output anything. We can output either 0 or 1. This is not specified. This is something called don't care. Okay, we just don't care about output in this case. Okay, regardless. Okay, so we have the right function. Okay, because we only care about 0 through 9. Okay, hopefully this makes some sense, right? Once we have this kind of a problem, right? So basically some of the inputs are don't cares. We can put something called D or X, okay, in the Karnaugh map, in the K map. Okay? So this can be treated as either 1 or 0, okay? Because we don't care, right? So we don't really care for them. They can be either 0 or 1. But they are useful though. Okay, we can actually use don't cares to further simplify our circuit. And here's the deal. Okay, we don't have to cover them since we don't care about them, but you can use them to form a larger circle so that we have a more minimal, right, a more optimized expression. That's where we use it. Okay? It's not like we want to cover them. We cover them only if they are useful. Right. So let me just, this is my last slide, right? So let me just try to be really concrete here. Okay, so in this case, right, so this is the same function that I just mentioned, right? So these input combinations, right, will never occur, right, according to the input definition, problem definition, right? So that's why we have this don't cares. D means don't cares. Okay, so they're not 0, they're not 1, they're don't cares. They can be treated as either 0 or 1. So with this don't cares, how many circles do we need? Just 2, right? Because we can make use of this guy. So we can actually cover the entire row, the first row. Okay, right. So of course, we can also make use of the corner thing, right? There's a corner thing D. Okay, and we first cover the corners and we cover the entire row, right? And we don't cover these guys. We don't really care for these guys. Okay, we don't have to cover them. These are don't cares, but they are still useful, right? So we make use of 2 of them, right? This don't care and this don't care. All right, that's it. Okay, so in the end, we have a term like this. Okay, any more questions? If not, we are done for today. Thanks, guys.